I've seen it happen so many times. Someone grabs the cheapest MIG welder they can find, plugs it in, and within the first weekend of use the torch sputters, the wire feed stalls, and the whole project ends up half-finished and frustrating. The regret is real, especially when you've set aside a weekend to finally finish that metal coffee table or fix the broken gate on the farm. That's why I wanted to see if the Millermatic 255 feels like a smarter buy instead of a gamble. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the Millermatic 255 isn't a budget unit. It's positioned for a small commercial shop or a serious hobbyist who already has a dedicated 208V or 240V circuit. The fact that it runs on phase 1 power tells you a lot about the intended environment. You're not looking at a portable, 120 Vonley welder that you can toss into a garage without any electrical upgrades. The upfront cost of setting up a 50-amp breaker, the appropriate gauge wiring, and a proper grounding system can feel like a hurdle, but that's the price you pay for consistent performance when you actually need it. When I first hooked the Millermatic 255 up in my own garage, the biggest surprise was how quickly the machine settled into a stable arc. The digital control panel lets you dial in voltage and wire feed speed with a simple turn of a knob, and the changes are reflected on the spot. No need to keep a separate chart or guesswork. In a real-world scenario, I was welding an inch steel frame for a custom workbench. I set the machine to the recommended settings for mild steel, and within a few passes the welds were uniform, without the spatter that cheap units tend to throw everywhere. That kind of predictability saves time, especially when you're on a deadline or trying to keep a clean shop floor. One of the strengths that shows up only after you actually use the machine is the way Miller has tuned the transformer to handle the higher voltage input. The result is less voltage drop when you're running long runs of wire, so you don't get that annoying weak look in the middle of a weld. If you've ever tried to tack together a piece of sheet metal on a 120V welder and found the arc sputtering out as you moved along, you'll notice the difference immediately. For someone who builds things regularly, like fabricating a trailer frame or doing repetitive automotive bodywork, that consistency translates into fewer re-welds and a smoother finish. Now, let's talk about the trade-offs. The Millermatic 255 weighs in at about 65 pounds, which isn't a problem if you have a permanent bench, but it does mean you won't be hopping from job site to job site with ease. It also demands a robust power source. You can't just plug it into a standard 20-amp household outlet. If you don't already have a 208V/240V line, you'll need an electrician to install one, and that can add a few $100s to the total project cost. Another practical limitation is that the machine comes without a spool gun or a dedicated gas regulator. If you plan to weld aluminum or thin sheet metal, you'll need to purchase those accessories separately. That's not a deal breaker, but it's something new buyers often overlook until they're already looking for a spool gun and realize it's an extra expense. Who should buy this? If you have a dedicated workspace, a reliable 208V or 240V circuit, and you're looking to produce professional-grade welds on a regular basis, the Millermatic 255 fits the bill. It's especially appealing for small fabrication shops, automotive enthusiasts who do body repairs, or anyone who needs to move beyond the hobbyist tier without stepping up to an industrial-class machine. The digital interface makes it easy for someone with a decent amount of welding knowledge to fine-tune settings without spending hours consulting a manual, and the overall reliability means you spend more time welding and less time troubleshooting. On the flip side, if you're a casual DIYer who only needs to touch up a rusted fence or do an occasional repair on a metal bike frame, you'll likely find the power requirements and extra accessories more of a burden than a benefit. A 120V welder, even a modest one, might be enough for those occasional projects and will fit into a typical garage outlet without any electrical work. Renters who can't make permanent changes to their electrical system should also steer clear. The Millermatic 255 shines when it's installed in a space where you can commit to the right wiring and breaker size. Another hidden advantage that becomes clear after a few weeks of use is the machine's duty cycle. Because it's designed for continuous operation at higher amperages, you can run longer welds without the machine overheating and shutting down. In a practical sense, that means if you're building a 6-foot steel gate, You can weld the entire length in one sitting rather than stopping every 10 to 15 minutes to let the unit cool. That not only speeds up